Hello there everybody and welcome back to another two-pronged episode of Star Trek Lower Decks Ups and Downs. Such was the amazing feedback about last week's format, we thought we would revive it with Seán, because I'm choosing to believe that the feedback was based on the format and not just because I managed to convince Ash Millman to do an episode of it. Seán, how are you?
I am good. I am nervous. Let's see if people like me as much as Ash.
Look, I speak from a long history on every single other channel we have. It'll be fine. They'll either just hate you or they'll hate you for an actual reason, so it'll be grand. Yes, welcome back to Star Trek Lower Decks Ups and Downs. We're going to go through the episode, same as we normally do. Assign the best bits and up, and the good bits are down, and the bits that are neither good nor bad, they will be neither up nor down. Now, this was episode 5. Now, 5 episodes, how they've grown Cupid's Errant arrow. And much like last week, the USS Cerritos was joined by another Starfleet ship, this time to save a disintegrating moon-orbiting Mixtus 3. I should have written that down. I think all of that's correct. And not only did we get this amazing drama in space unfolding in front of us, we got our first mystery episode, which is normally Star Trek's bread and butter. Now, I should say, before we start, normally here at What Culture, we like to have some very dynamic, exciting backgrounds, but as a terrible coincidence, both Seán and I have been forced into the beigest part of our respective living abodes, and thus, well, it's like space, but if it was made of cream. So, Chris, if you're watching this, flying things, laser noises, anything to jazz it up. Now, Seán, before we start, could I quickly get a one-sentence review of this episode, please?
Lower Decks knocks it out of the park with the references and the gags this week.
See, now, that could, I think, apply to pretty much every episode, bar, like, one of them? I think the standard we're setting so far seems pretty high to me. So I don't know if you've been watching my episodes of Ups and Downs, Seán, but the thing I try to do is I try and go through it and go, was this funny and was this Star Trek? Because as a Star Trek animated comedy, those are the only 2 boxes it needs to tick to be a success. So we're going to examine both of those first, and then we'll get the first ups or indeed downs. Now, I don't know how you feel about this. I thought this might be the funniest episode they've done.
Yep, 100% agree. 100% agree. Yeah, hilarious, and you genuinely, you just want to follow along with it because the mystery side of it is just as funny as the gags, and the gags come thick and fast in this one.
Yeah, I have a good pal who writes some similar daft animated comedies for television, and she's told me that the hit rate for gags in this is so far above the industry average, it's genuinely unbelievable. And as I've said in previous episodes, it's not even just like a little laugh that it gets out of me. It normally gets a ha-ha out of me, which loads of shows tend not to do. Like, I don't know how long it can maintain this consistency of being funny. I keep thinking, they're going to have used all the jokes up this week. Do you think, is there enough legs in this, or they're going to run out of steam?
Do you know what? I'd almost worry about that, because this week was so good. This week you get a reference to nearly everything Star Trek's ever done. So how do you follow that? What comes next week? And I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a bit concerned. It's like, this was great. Oh, episode 6 is going to drop the ball, isn't it?
See, I've thought about that with everything, like the Easter eggs and the theme and the tone and everything. Like, after the first episode, my impression was, wow, I loved that. That was great, but they're not going to keep that going every single week. They can't keep that standard going. And so far they have. So I can't mark a show down because so far it's been too funny, can I? So on this week alone, I think we're going to get into a lot of the references in just a little bit, but purely just on how funny it was. Like, that's getting a solid up from me. I don't know if you agree with that.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Funniest episode so far, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would go with that 100%. Should we talk about the references? Because you've prepared a nice little Easter eggs assortment for us.
Three pieces of paper, back and front. That's how many.
How big are the pieces of paper we're talking here?
It's not important, Adam. Okay. The important part is there's 3 of them.
It's Post-it notes.
I counted 14 main eggs with sub eggs in it as well. Now, that might not sound like very much, but that's like 20 minutes or something.
Oh, that's a good Easter egg every minute, pretty much, if including the sub eggs.
What I think is an extra success of this episode is so many Easter eggs, and yet there's a plot. Now, I would say that. So, the first line that properly had me like tears crying, and I actually mean that. Like, I'm not just saying that. Barb is as real as a hopped up queue on Captain Picard Day. That was a particular popper of mine. I particularly liked. He's a Kirk Sunday with Trip Tucker sprinkles. I really enjoyed that. Do you want to run us through the rest of them? We got references to holodeck girlfriends. We got Barclay and, of course, Geordie and Leah Brahms. That ended well, depending on what universe you're in. Or rogue holodeck characters. You've got Moriarty, you've got Minuet from 1101. What? Yeah, we'll do that next week. I think, for me, it's the nicest bit of the episode, the Geordie teddy bear. That was very nice. It was a very nice touch. It's so cute. Now, here was a deep dive. Mariner offers to set Boimler up with the Philosian. So that is a plant person coming from the animated series The Infinite Vulcan. Continuing the trend of there's so many deep cut references in Lower Decks that you wouldn't necessarily get on the surface. I think the last one was... I'm terrible for remembering episode names, where they're running after the Klingon and there is the shapeshifter, the changeling from animated series as well. There's a Doctor Who reference in there.
No, shut up, there's not.
There is. Barb's running around talking about that time she reversed the polarity.
Is that a Doctor Who reference? We need Rich Upton on for this.
Now, there is Trek. They've done it in Trek before, but it's so associated with Doctor Who. You can't write it in now without going, yeah, it's John Pertwee. Reference to 1920s Chicago. That's original series piece of the action. So there's a good gag about the relationships of Star Trek ending badly. You've got, She Might Eat You, DS9, The Muse, Romulan Spy, Data's Day, Ambassador T'Pel, Salt Succubus, The Man Trap, all the way back from original series. You've got She Could Be an Android, that's the original series again, What Are Little Girls Made Of, or Requiem for Methuselah, Changeling, although I think that's a bit of a dig at poor Odo.
Yes, I agree with that.
It was okay.
Yes, just...
And then this was, so she could be one of those sexy people in rompers who murder you just for going on the grass.
What was that? That tweaked something in my head, and I was like, I know that episode, but I've not looked it up yet.
Justice, Wesley Crusher, season 1 of Next Generation, goes through the flower bed and they tried to put him to death. Now, some people at that point of season 1 of TNG might have been supporting those aliens, but Wesley's grown on us since. So I'm glad it didn't happen.
Look, I'm very pro Wesley Crusher. As a man who's pretty much lived his life as the Wesley Crusher in every situation he's ever been in, I'm very, very pro Wesley Crusher. I have no problem with that.
Works with me.
Yeah, what were these sub-eggs?
So the sub-eggs would have been delicious, but particularly the chart. So,
oh God,
this conspiracy chart, this is one of those put on the kettle moments. So you have written down, she could be a dolphin, TNG season 2. The dolphin, Wesley gets a changeling girlfriend.
Oh, man,
there's a picture of Data's daughter, Lal. Again, call back to she could be an android. She says she could be a Suliban.
What a shout that was. Like,
I know.
Enterprise, just because it came after all these other shows, you just don't really feel like it's in. It never gets referenced, never gets mentioned anything. So to get a Trip Tucker reference and the Suliban reference in the same thing, I keep saying this time and time again, they know what they're doing. They know exactly what we like. They know what's going to make us laugh. And they clearly get the universe and they get everything. I remember when this was getting pitched, it was described as a love letter to Star Trek. And just as every single week goes by, the more of these we get, the deeper the cuts get. Like, the further back they think they can make us laugh with these things, the more it just kind of proves that they know what they're doing with it. So again, I'm going to give the references and the Easter eggs and just how bloody Star Trek it felt its own up, unless you've got any protests to make about that.
Nope, not from me. It's a love letter to the fandom. It's a love letter to the franchise. And, if you miss some of these references, it doesn't affect the episode. You still enjoy the episode. And if you get the references, it makes it even better.
Yep. I completely agree with that. The format of the episode this week was... Now, I know we tend to have separate stories going on, but this was as close to like a dual narrative running side by side as I think we've had all the way through. Obviously, Mariner and Boimler, they were dealing with Barb, and is she an alien, is she a parasite, is she a spy, is she a Romulan, is she a Suleiman, is she a changeling, is she a whatever, all of that, while Rutherford and Tendi were trying to get their hands on some T-88. Now, I have said already on this that I already feel there is a lower decks to lower decks, in that the stories they're giving to Tendi and Rutherford don't feel as interesting or as well fleshed out, whereas Boimler and Mariner tend to have really the bulk of the narrative heft. And even though the screen time felt fairly equal this week, like, the joke that they wanted the T-88 felt done very, very quickly, and yet they didn't really move on from that. Like, did you feel that worked the same way as the other story worked?
No, in that it didn't get enough time. I think I've said before, I think Rutherford is my favorite character so far. So I would have liked more time with him. So I felt that it was more of I enjoyed it, but it was more of a one-note gag.
Yeah.
Than the A plot. And yeah, I just would have liked to have seen them do a bit more.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. Every week it does feel like there's an A plot and a B plot, which obviously you're going to get, but my problem with that is I think the B plots feel kind of like C or D plots in a lot of cases. Like, don't get me wrong, it's a 20-minute show. It's just supposed to be funny. I can't go into too much depth at the same way we would do a Picard or a Discovery, but just they've clearly got two very awesome characters there. Like, people love Rutherford, people love Tendi, and yet every week goes by, I'm just like, just give them something substantial to do. Where the joke, like, Tendi got loads of screen time last week, but the joke was she wants to make it up to this person. And that was just stretched out really thin throughout the entire episode. So, not to be that guy, but I am going to give the imbalance of the dual storylines its own down this week. But that is, I'll just say now as a bit of spoilers, that's the only down I have. Unless of course, Sean, you want to overrule this.
No, I will not overrule it. I think, yeah, it's fair, but it's because we wanted more.
Yeah. I agree with that. But the more we did get concerned the main story, which was this mystery about Barb. And could she genuinely, really, actually like Boimler without wanting to lay her eggs inside his neck or to rip off his face? And I think that actually gave us my favourite moment so far, in a weird way, and that was the flashback to, you presume, Deep Space Nine and Mariner's time on the USS Quito. Is that what it was? Quito?
Quito, yeah.
Quito, yeah. That was genuinely just to see the old uniforms, that hairstyle for a kickoff, and then somebody get eaten alive in a bar was I don't know. That felt like, I don't know. Just for all the flashback stuff we've had, that did feel like it was of real substance and really tied it in as close as we've had to any of the other Star Trek shows, because I'm presuming that is Deep Space Nine. I don't know of any other derelict Cardassian space stations the Federation has their hands on.
Yeah, exactly. And before anyone says it, I can hear people going, Empok Nor. Well, last I heard, Starfleet doesn't have that one.
Yeah, that's floating around in space with murderous chemicals in it. We've all seen that episode. I presume that's Deep Space Nine. Yeah,
no, and I totally agree. What I loved as well, again, Easter egg, if it is an Olympic class, obviously it's the Quito, but the USS Pasteur. Oh my God, I was at this point I was getting overloaded with the amount of references and deep dives, but it felt like, and it actually gave a little bit more depth to Mariner.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah,
terrible has happened.
Yeah, I agree. Like, obviously, Mariner her gimmick is very much, look, man, I've seen things. So if I had actually just say that and it cut immediately to a flashback where it shows you the things she's actually seen, expanding a bit more on the fact she's been in Starfleet a long time, I thought it was really nice. And look, I know that you're the same as me. You're a big uniform nerd. It was really good to see those, like, movie era, DS9 era uniforms on screen. And although, and I hate to be this guy, so many people I saw on Twitter were like, oh my God, we've not seen these uniforms since Star Trek Nemesis. And I was like, they had one in the last episode of Picard, so technically that's not the last time you saw it. But hey, what am I, a bad nerd?
So we were going through Easter eggs.
I think overall, just the genuine, while I think there was a massive imbalance in the two storylines, I do think the mystery angle we got with Mariner and Boimler and how it went up and down and it was explored all the different avenues of it. And in the end, it was actually quite a nice resolution. Very similar to what they were trying to say with the Tendi and Rutherford story of just actually what you've got might be lame and creaky and old and bad, but it's yours. And obviously that bit of that platonic friendship we're getting between Mariner and Boimler, which is like, yes, he is a dork, but he's my dork, and I'm protective of him. And I was, as manic as I was going, it was because I was trying to look out for my friend. Obviously, we've seen what happened to a friend in a previous ship. So, yeah, I think overall the mystery storyline was great, I think.
I think so. I loved the resolution of it. I love that, as the audience as well as Mariner, okay, we've covered every single avenue. Barb's real. Yeah. Okay, yeah, I believe it. And it was very, very nice. And you feel bad for Boimler in that, okay, it didn't work out, but he's got solid friends groups there.
Yeah.
And that's really nice. It was a nice resolution, I thought.
I think the main saving grace for Boimler is that his true love is the uniform and indeed the ship and his career. And while that is also apparently an unrequited love, he's got that to fall back on at the very least. I'd say I'm going to give that another up. I think just the main thrust of the story, while it was slightly imbalanced, which I think is still a big negative of the show, I thought the main thrust of the story, the core story, and as you say, the resolution of it was, probably one of the strongest self-contained episodes they've done so far. I think the self-contained thing is working really well. It's nice to get back to that sort of catastrophe of the week format away from the core narratives we've had with Discovery and Picard. And I don't know, I think as examples go of just how you can self-contain an entire episode with exploding moons and parasites in your brains and love interests and all this, I thought it was a 20-minute romp of adventure.
Yep, 100%. Yeah. It flowed really quickly. It's the kind of episode you could kind of happily stick on again afterwards. I think
genuinely that's an underrated element of Lower Deck so far, the replayability of it. You're not going to have to sit through an entire season. You can't just stick on the odd episode, which I think television in general struggles to do now because they want you to sit through and get through one big story where it links directly from the last episode and goes directly into the next episode. And they want you to binge it all in one go. Whereas Lower Decks now, I could very happily pick out 2 or 3 episodes and just put them on whenever.
Yep. And from what I've seen so far, more or less out of order as well, which was something that TNG was very, very good for. You could kind of watch them all over the place. They had their arc. Lower Decks has something of an arc. I think we're going to see the Captain Freeman. There's something's going to boil to a head there because there's all these digs in against her, like, oh, your ship's not great. Oh, your ship's not great. I look forward to seeing what's going to come from that. But yeah, overall, really, really solid. Really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think everything about every element of it, aside perhaps from how they're balancing the characters, is working really, really well, which is pretty much all we've got time for today. Sean, have you got any final thoughts on the episode as a whole? Anything we haven't covered?
No, nothing we haven't covered. Really, really love it. More Easter eggs, please. Take a breath when you're writing the Easter eggs because what's left after this episode? Yeah,
if there's the biggest compliment I can pay to Lower Decks right now is that I am constantly worried it can't continue to be this good for an entire season. But hey, prove me wrong, CBS. Prove me wrong. So let us know what you made of this all in the comments below. Of course, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Sean, where can they get you on Twitter? Which no doubt they'll now want to do.
Well, you can grab me nice and easy at Seán Ferrick on Twitter.
You get me at Adam Clery, Clery, and the entire Trek Culture family is, I think, Trek Culture. But I should have looked at that before I said it. Anyway, in the meantime, I have been Adam. This has been Sean. Thank you so much for joining us on Star Trek Lower Decks Ups and Downs. I always nearly say Lower Downs or Upper Decks every time I do that. I'm going to slip up one of these days. Anyway, thank you for joining us. We'll both see you soon. Bye.